According to mainstream culture, there are some souls that are so big that they cannot possibly fit into one body. And so these souls are split and they are carried in the human form for my human listeners. And when these people meet, there is this recognition, which begins the twin flame journey. And then what unfolds is this, what appears to be this improbable series of serendipities and events which led you to this meeting, this chance, fate, destiny encounter. For many, not everybody, but for many. There are often serendipities leading up to the meeting, numbers, patterns, strange things which catch your attention and catch your eye. Even when you're not awake to this, I remember on my shadow twin flame journey, when we first started getting together, we had a sequence of numbers. It was kind of comical, and neither of us were awake to metaphysical principles. And we would just point it out and be like, oh, that's so random. That's so weird. And so things like that can happen, right? Then you start this progression of this romance in some cases, although not in all cases. For example, I have a listener who reached out to me that shared their story, their twin flame story. A beautiful story, heartbreaking though at the same time. And they were two heterosexual men that met at work that had wives and families and a life set up, and they helped each other with their spiritual awakening. So one was a little more advanced than the other, and they connected on this twin flame journey that was completely platonic, but very deep and very loving, because love is not always romance. It's not always physical intimacy. The vibration of love is a very specific frequency, and the twin flame journey is about getting you to those higher octaves of love in most cases, not in every case, as we'll talk about here. And so their journey, actually one of them is no longer with us. We'll honor the sacredness of that story and not reveal the details because it's very, very personal. But what I like is that I heard from this listener who was still manifesting with them. The presence of their consciousness of their twin flame was still in a dimension that they could access, and they could come together in the metaphysical planes and work towards a manifestation, which is beautiful. And so in that situation, one person opened the door and then led the other person through a spiritual awakening. And then that person became the teacher and started leading and started pulling the other deeper into the unknown. Others have a more traditional romantic relationship, a heteronormative relationship, or some variation. And it can be expressed in a variety of different ways. A lot of people do have a romantic twin flame dynamic, and it is one of the most powerful, intense dynamics that you could undergo for a relationship. You go stupid, blind, crazy with them because they're just that potent. Sometimes in other cases, people are so overwhelmed by it that they're scared of it. And so then this creates this push and pull dynamic. And so this is where this idea of the runner and the chaser come in. And then the roles will switch because then the other person will be afraid. And it's this dance, right? And then in other cases, particularly for the shadow twin flame journey, which is not often described, but is quite, wow. I don't recommend those, but if you find yourself in one, I can definitely guide you through it because I'm guiding people through it. I've been requested to help facilitate getting out of some of those dynamics, transmuting it to a higher octave, and connecting with a different version. And so the shadow twin flame journeys are all about digging up your shadow patterns and how you sabotage, and how you're unconsciously creating and revealing that to you. And at the very lowest, blackest octaves of those journeys, it's about self-love. It's about boundaries and self-respect. And so you can imagine that there's a lot of toxicity. There's a lot of wars. There is sometimes abuse or even violence in the darkest of dark. There is domination. So there's issues with empowerment and disempowerment. There is S&M type of dynamics, heavy S&M, even like full BDSM, but not in give me your safe word type of way. And like, I'm going to send you to hell using these methods type of way. And it can be a deeply traumatizing experience. Those are at the lowest levels of the nightmare octaves. And then when you start to advance through your shadow work, you lose the connection, you lose the attraction points, and the shadow twin flame, you don't want them as a romantic partner afterwards. You may want them as a friend, a business partner, but it's like once you've transmuted everything, you support each other, you respect each other, but it's kind of like you're happy to go your own way. And that is really the defining feature of the shadow twin flame journey, is that it's really relegated to those lower octaves versus the traditional twin flame journey, which can dive a little bit into those octaves, but usually not as deep. So I've also had a quote unquote traditional twin flame journey, and we're still in separation, and they decided to stay in their marriage and in their life. And the last I spoke with them, they continued on their journey, but redirecting their energy to where they had a family. And I was really happy to see that they had grown so much and that they had continued their spiritual journey and are practicing with their wife. And so that dynamic that we were in was all about the triangulation dynamic and not excluding anybody. And that was part of my self-love journey as well, but not the shadow self-love. That was a different journey. This was my journey in choosing available partners and not being in competition in a triangulating dynamic, and seeing his wife as a soulmate too, like soul family. And she, even when we talked and when she confronted me, she was like, I think we would make really good friends. And I was like, I feel it too. And she said something like, I think we've been friends in a past life. And I'm like, yeah, we're soul family. I feel it. So it was all about not warring with her, right? And loving each other. And I reached this place to when I heard from this person, when I heard from my former twin flame, I felt this like love, like this higher octave of love that was beyond what I felt in the beginning, for the romantic triangulation. And I felt that for her too. And so it's kind of like my road to poly twin flame, although we're not poly and I haven't even talked to her in years, but it's sort of like when you reach compersion, for those who are into polyamory, it's a very distinct type of vibration, right? And even if you're not attuned to vibration, it's a very particular type of expression of love. And it is so much higher of an expression to see your partner in love with somebody else and then to love that they're in love, you know, and to like really feel that. And I do have experience in polyamory, although I identify as monogamous right now, and I have reached that actually. And so that's how I can make those comparisons. It was like a spiritual compersion where I felt this healing because the wound was with me and her, or her and I. And I could see that she had been taking great care of him. And that was my worry. I was like, well, he's not going to grow. He's not going to advance. He was, when I met him, stagnant, and still expressing shadow aspects. And I was like, well, if this is a condition that I met him, then, he's not going to grow. And he did. He grew a lot. And I complimented him on his growth because I could see it. I could feel it. And so separation is a really big part of the twin flame journey. And most people don't like to hear that. But that's where the work really begins, in my opinion. But a lot of people feel rejected or abandoned, which is good because that means you still have wounds that you need to address, right? Because you should be able to walk away at any point, especially if you see that somebody needs to grow with somebody else. And that gets me to a different octave of these dynamics, which is once you start to rise out of the Eros love, like Eros love keeps you in a certain octave range that's above the shadow twin flame. And it's like the normal twin flame journey will vacillate to what I call agape love, and then all the way down to the very edge of the shadow love journey. But it doesn't dip very far. It's like the middle band. And so the twin flame journey, the traditional one that people talk about, especially in binary societies, are relegated to that middle band. And as a result, there's not a lot of information about the upper band and the lower band, or the upper octave and the lower octave being the shadow twin flame journey and the upper one being the agape love. That's what I call it, journey. Or another way is that I think, I haven't read a lot of information about this, is the divine ray. So we're moving away from this idea that there's only two parts of a union. And honestly, I like Bashar's take on this the best because this resonates with my own experience, and I've had several different types of twin flame experiences, and they've all been unique and powerful in their own way, and they've all been very powerful accelerant catalyst energies for helping me grow and helping them grow too. And Bashar's take on it is really great in that we all come from this source consciousness. And I'm not going to quote him verbatim. This is my synthesized understanding with my own pieces of knowledge. And essentially, what happens is that we fragment ourselves to experience certain angles of consciousness and certain angles of existence. And it's a beautiful sort of fractal arrangement and multiple fractals upon multiple fractals. And I got to experience source energy when I did a very powerful ayahuasca ceremony. So I have a conceptualization for how large this consciousness is that we then are just a little sliver of. And as a result, we are archetype patterns that are walking around that have a certain vibration, frequency, behavior paradigms, and then et cetera, et cetera. I'll go more into this later. It's very, very important. But essentially, the idea, and this is what Bashar was saying, is that the vibration of the consciousness between two people is what creates the magnetism of the twin flame journey. And so it feels like it is your other half of your soul because it is such a perfect complement. But that's not the only option. And this is where I believe that a lot of people get it wrong in our modern day binary society, is that when people are stuck in the twin flame journey, particularly in the separation, going to, and they're working through the lesson, they don't see beyond it. And so as a result, they say there is only one twin flame because that's all they're experiencing. And it is true that the twin flame journey has a level of potency that is much, much greater than any other Eros love relationship or partnership that you will experience in your lifetime, including traditional soulmates. It's like next level. I mean, you would cut off your left arm for somebody. Okay, not really, but you do things that are beyond your character, that you think your character is. You find yourself in situations where you are considering an affair, for example, and you're opposed to having affairs. You find yourself in situations where you might leave your spouse for your twin flame, but you were dedicated to your spouse. And it's this level of awakening to love that you're like, I didn't know this existed. But the problem is that very often, no, I'm going to say all the time, the twin flame journey is an inside job. This is what I say. It's an inside job because it's actually about the transformation. It's about your growth and your soul's journey and the template of consciousness that you happen to be carrying at that time is going to be perfectly mirrored in somebody else who the universe will magically bump you into, and the magnetism that you feel with them will be so strong that you will change your entire life for them, unless you get really, really scared. And unless you start really acting out and self-sabotaging the relationship or destroying the relationship. You know, it's so crazy. We are so afraid of love, most of us, that we actually hide who we are. Isn't that remarkable? We're so afraid of love that we hide who we are. Sit with that for a moment. Because to truly love yourself, you put yourself out there to be loved. And you're fearless about it. You're courageous about it. Because you're like, I love myself. If somebody rejects me, it's no big deal. Like, what are we afraid of? I'm going to be ruined. What does that look like? You're going to be fine. You're going to go through some hard stuff either way. It's part of the journey. Like, I remember one soul partner that I had. I was swimming in a pool in Costa Rica, and I was asking him because I could feel that we had a quantum love, right? That it hit multiple octaves. It hit across time points. It hit in several different timelines. And I was with one version of him who was so terrified of love, which means that I was too, but I couldn't see that. It's always easier to see it in other people first. And so we're swimming in the pool, and he had broken up with his girlfriend to explore our dynamic because I had learned my lesson, or had I? Not quite, but close. I got closer. And so I got a lot closer, but I had another level to go. And so I was asking him, why are you so afraid of falling in love? Why? I don't get it. Like, let's do it. Let's explore. Let's have fun. Let's figure it out. And he was like, I want to take it slow. Actually, that's really great. I totally agree, except when you're not being authentic to what's really happening and how you're really feeling. And that gets to the unthinkable about the twin flame experience, is that you can feel love a lot faster than society tells you you're supposed to. Because in traditional societies, you go through a process of falling in love, and then you have the limerence, and you have the hormones and neuropeptides that are released, and you have the cuddles and the feels, and then you get to know each other. And when you start talking about these spiritual relationships, this feels taboo, because you're like, I think I love you. And then the variations of love that are expressed through you are immediate and beyond the behavior. It's like, you just know. There is a knowing and a knowing and a knowing. So then let's go back to the agape love. That's the higher octave. This partnership is really unique in that whenever it starts to go into the shadow patterns, the love just dissipates. Or not dissipates, but there's always the love there, but it's like the connection, the attraction point, the magnetism, just like it literally evaporates. And then you both don't attach, and you're like, I need to go learn a lesson with somebody else. I have a shadow pattern active. And you don't go into the shadow with that person. You go into the shadow with other soulmates or other twin flame octaves. So I think about this agape love partner. It's probably better if I just give you an example. I think about this partner that we have a very unique dynamic. We're in separation too. And although we touch base here and there, but we just have a friendship right now. And when I met him, it was like lights out. The recognition was so profound that we just hugged each other all night. Literally. And that's how it started, is that he was the bartender, and I was waiting on some friends, and I was getting drinks. And then after like 2 or 3, there's something happened. We clicked, we connected. And at the end of the night, he came up and he gave me a hug. And then that transformed the entire evening, because it was like we looked at each other and we saw this oldness between us that defied logic, it defied reason, it defied everything. And we hung out together and had an amazing time. And every time that we got together, it was magical. Like we both we had tears of joy the way that we took care of one another. Like he would go into the kitchen and cook for like 2 hours with random ingredients, like Top Chef style, right? Literally just, he took joy in just like chefing a creation and having me wait to surprise me. And then we would have this beautiful candlelit dinner together, one time in the garden under the stars. And then I would do the same, where I would make him this elaborate breakfast. And the way that we would take care of each other was the highest expression of love, right? That had no weight to it. And it was this free love that didn't feel possessive. It didn't feel jealous. And when we had moments where we slipped into that, it eroded the attraction point. And when we separated, it was because I needed to continue on a shadow journey that he couldn't join me on. And I could sense that he was going through something that he needed to go through with somebody else, the mother of his children. There was unresolved business there. And the way that their vibration would hit and the lessons that they would work on together, he and I were not interested in working that out together. And so it created this beautiful dynamic to where we could just flow with it and say, you know what, now is not working for me. Or I need to work on this with somebody else. And there was one time we had a blow up because of the shadow, like we were going into our shadow. And so we just separated, and that was that. And there wasn't pain, there wasn't drama, there wasn't hurting each other. It was just this recognition, like, okay, we've got to go work somewhere else. So there are a multitude of different experiences. And what I really like is that when you are open to reality shifting, you can work towards the transmutation of the relationship through the framework of reality shifting. And in my experience, these types of relationships open up gifts and abilities. And for example, I know of another couple that is in union right now that they would be in like I don't know them personally that well, but the way that one of their partners described their union was so beautiful. It's like she is living in the 70 and 90 effectively. Like she wants to spend all day in meditation and using her special abilities and doing things for the collective. And he's very much oriented in the material plane of existence and is building like this healing and retreat center. And he helps her anchor her gifts into the material plane, and she helps him work on the immaterial. And so partnerships can look like that too. And from knowing him a little bit, they're not fighting and dragging each other to the pits of hell. So the way that these relationships can be expressed are very unique and ultimately are designed to facilitate your growth and your soul's journey. And the way that manifests can have so many different forms that when you're talking about the twin flame journey, it's actually kind of a misnomer to say twin flame. Like it's that's a binary way of looking at it. And I want to expand it to a more quantum perspective, because what you can do is when you start doing the work, you can reality shift to the upgraded version of the person that you're trying to connect with. And I've even had, because I'm a twin flame facilitator through reality shifting now, this is new for me. I love it. I actually really love it, combining it with reality shifting. And I've had the higher self of one partner who's in separation. This is like their separated, estranged partner, reach out to me in meditation and give me the potential and the understanding of where we're going, because I'm helping to facilitate and guide the other half through the shadow work. And it remains to be seen if we can transmute everything, but it's an amazing journey. And if you are open to exploring the journey, and if you are in separation and you want to get to that higher potential or higher octaves of love, and you want to do the shadow work, then please reach out to me. I would love to do one-on-one coaching with you. I can be a little direct and a little, we work really fast. So if you're open to really diving in and getting things done in an intense and quick way, I'm your person, and I would love to be your twin flame facilitator and guide. You can email me at sacredjourneyproductions@gmail.com.
And what this means is that when you're